Conversations across time. 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 Conversations across time.
Hi, I'm Mark Hoffman. You probably have seen me portray many characters on Conversations Across Time, but in real life, I'm a history teacher. I want to introduce tonight's Conversations Across Time. The panel includes Roy Cohn, counsel for Senator Joseph McCarthy during the McCarthy hearings, Fidel Castro, Premier and President of Cuba, Paul Robeson, All-American football player, Hollywood star, and socialist, and myself portraying Karl Marx. Stay tuned for a show that is very provocative. It will show you panic, persecution, and a discussion of freedom.
Welcome to Conversations Across Time. My name is Vivian Crawford, and my co-host seated next to me tonight is former Pennsylvania State Representative Babette Josephs. Welcome, Babby.
Thank you so much.
Nice to have you at the table with me.
I like it. The honor is mine.
Conversations Across Time is a television show that invites you, the viewer, to suppose what could happen if conversations were to occur between historical personalities, and historical personalities from differing time periods. The goal of Conversations Across Time is to introduce to you, our audience, the thought processes of and strategic applications of immortals who are here this evening to discuss their policies and their thoughts and to apply those same policies and thoughts to what is happening today. Now, tonight's guests are seated to my right, Comrade Karl Marx. Welcome.
Thank you, Comrade Crawford.
And seated next to Comrade Marx is Mr. Roy Cohn.
That's right, Mr., not Comrade, okay?
And seated next to Comrade Cohn
I told you about the Comrade.
is President Fidel Castro. Welcome, President Castro.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Seated next to President Castro is Paul Robeson. Welcome, Mr. Robeson.
Thank you.
Now, the last time that this panel was together, we got into a rather heated discussion involving power and the influence of power and how that power is wielded, and in fact, the misuse of power. Now, before we get back to that, I want to say one thing. First of all, President Castro, you are educated as an attorney.
That's correct.
Something that most people don't know about you. And Mr. Robeson, you also are educated as an attorney. Mr. Cohn, as we all know, was chief counsel for Senator McCarthy.
All those lawyers, no wonder there was trouble.
Exactly. But unlike President Castro and Mr. Robeson, Mr. Cohn was disbarred. And as Babette and I are attorneys also, we understand the significance of one losing their law license. And in this instance, the loss of your license was for unethical behavior. But I just wanted to point that out, that we're seated here with someone who terrorized so many people, and he was disbarred. Now, I want to get to something that a lot of our audience might not know, and that is that Mr. Cohn actually attacked so many innocent people, and I think Babette, you were speaking about that. Some of the folk that were the focus of the wrath of the committee.
They were just intellectuals who went to discussion groups. They were exercising their First Amendment rights to talk about things.
Spreading crazy ideas around the people that.
As was Paul Robeson.
Excuse me, shouldn't.
Wait, you interrupted me.
Spreading crazy ideas around that shouldn't be spread around. The people who didn't know any better.
See,
so
lawyers.
some things that just you don't discuss, okay?
What about some of the innocent people that you target?
What innocent people?
Paul
Annie-
Robeson,
Paul Robeson?
Innocent of what?
he did nothing except exercise his First Amendment rights to say what he favored politically.
He was a communist dupe.
But
Now,
so
I
the
know-
fact that he was a communist, there is nothing illegal about being a communist. I mean,
And you were a dupe.
Dupe of what? I'm a dupe for what?
You're a dupe of power, you're a dupe of McCarthyism, you were a dupe of homosexuality.
I exercise power because I know how power works.
And you lost it.
Comrade Cohen, what are you?
Excuse me about the comrade.
What were you and your Senator McCarthy afraid of? Were you afraid of my ideas? Were you afraid of?
We were afraid of communist subversion in the United States government.
What do you mean by that, Mr. Cohen?
Subversion.
What's subversion?
Subversion, communist agents. Agents whose primary allegiance was to the Soviet Union, not to the United States. That's what we were concerned
Then
about.
why did you persecute people that had no ties to the Soviet Union, simply believed in my theory?
I mean, that in and itself is enough to call you a communist agent agent of the Soviet Union as far as I'm concerned. Because anybody who adheres to that is adhering to a dictatorial enemy ideology, and that is
Karl
to me is
Marx
treason.
never
President
talked about
Castro
that.
is a communist, so you could say that you would persecute people because of their Cuban belief? What are you saying?
and when you talk about the Soviet
You
Union,
persecuted people simply because they believed in my philosophy
Your crazy philosophy.
of economic.
They didn't even have to
they
believe
didn't have to
in
believe.
it.
I want to give you one
They
case in
just
point.
had to
That's a good-
discuss it.
I want to give you one case in point. Miss Annie Lee Moss, African American woman who had a very low level position in the State Department. You dragged her in front of your committee and attacked her. Unfortunately, Edward R. Murrow, who we all in this business
Another
have a
communist dupe.
Okay, Edward R. Murrow taped the testimony in front of your committee when you asked Annie Moss, who was a low-level employee in the State Department. She didn't have anything to do with coding, and you insisted that she was passing on secrets to the Soviets. Now, she never had anything to do with sensitive material, but the interesting thing is Miss Annie Lee Moss sat there, and you questioned her about Karl Marx, and she turned to her attorney, who you did not allow to speak because he's an African-American man in front of the committee, and she said, "Who is Karl Marx?" She did not even know who Karl Marx was because you had the wrong Annie Lee Moss. I'm just saying that your practices were so questionable. I'm just, and you sit here now with no regret, no, oh, perhaps I was wrong. You just don't have that. You just have arrogance beyond belief.
That's because I represent people who run the country, who own the country, who
For a
own
minute,
the media,
for a minute.
and they decide, and we decide what you're gonna think, what you're gonna vote, and who you're gonna vote for. We decide.
Comrade Cohen.
Excuse me about the comrade.
Comrade Cohen,
What?
you just articulated my theory of capitalism,
Yes, you
if
did.
you don't know it. So I think you should persecute yourself.
Yes.
Put yourself before your own committee and question yourself about your belief in communism, because you just articulated my theory of capitalism and the ruling class and the control the ruling class has.
And
So
that's
now-
the way it's
now-
always
now-
been
now-
in history, and that is the way it's going to continue to be.
Well, then you are a communist and you should persecute yourself.
I'm
Mr.
a communist.
Mr. Khan,
Why?
your country is running on the residue of a revolution that has long passed in your own side of the fence, and now you say you were a communist when you fought against Britain and won your freedom, so-called freedom, and now you oppress people around the world because they do not.
We don't oppress anybody.
Mr. Robeson.
We do not oppress anybody. We don't.
My colleague, Mr. Robeson, what have you discerned from the American policy abroad as you have traveled so extensively in its precepts of democracy?
Unfortunately, the United States is not so different from the rest of the world in that the government of the United States pays lip service to liberty, but has seen no reason to stop
Spying on everybody.
limiting that liberty. The governments in various countries in the world are not without flaws. They're just vary by which values they excel in and in which they fail. The period of time in which Roy Cohn operated most actively in the United States government is one of the darkest times in the history of our great country. But we did not survive that period of time without learning valuable lessons about how to proceed and how to limit power in the future.
You think we really learned lessons?
We learned those lessons. Whether we have been able to put them into practice is a matter of
Another
some
question.
doubt.
Yes.
What do you call the season of the witch?
Oh,
Sounds
Halloween.
like a
What are
song.
you talking about, Season of the Witch?
Oh, well, I think I perceive a witchcraft here of some sort.
Perhaps
Yeah, I
you're-
mean,
A ghost
yeah,
hunt.
you third world types. I mean, always got your superstitions.
We work on-
I mean, you don't know, so you're.
And you don't have any.
I don't know.
So that's
I
why we
don't
come to
know.
your country to
Well, so did you.
educate you and teach you how to really govern.
Education is a good point for you. What is the level of literacy in your country?
Low.
Very low.
Well, hey, we
Lower
got TV,
than in
we don't
your
need
country.
literacy.
Lower
Of
than
course,
in
because literate people
Much
would
lower.
ferret you out as the phony you are.
And literate people would support a great artist and athlete and
Yeah, well,
performer.
nobody cares about great
Like-
artists.
like
they just,
Paul
They
Robeson.
just like pretty pictures.
Literate
that's all.
people
Fantasy.
do.
You
People
live
have been educated do, and
You
that's
live in a
why you don't
fantasy
want
world, my
anybody
friend. You
educated.
live in a
I have a
fantasy
question.
world.
He does not like Mr. Robeson and what Mr. Robeson stood for.
Mr.
But wait. But let me just finish the question.
All right.
Why did you take his passport? Why didn't you let him keep his passport and continue to roam and go to other countries so that he could support himself? Why did the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover think it was necessary to take this man's passport?
It's a citizen of the United
Hey,
States.
everybody stands
It's
up
a
to
right
us.
to travel.
Everybody stands up to us. We smash him down.
The heck with the Constitution.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes you
Yeah,
got
the
to break
heck
the law
with
in
it.
order to enforce it.
Yeah, right.
Comrade Cohen, I love everything you say because every word that comes out of your mouth reinforces my theory.
Yes, it does.
Who rules the country? The class that owns the means of production. And all you keep saying is we have the right to do this because we are the superior class. We're
'Cause
the
we have
rich
the money
class.
and we have
all
the
you are doing is
resources.
continue to articulate my theory, and I think it's great, man. Keep on going.
Because it is people like the we that you discuss, Comrade Cohn. It's the people like the we that you discuss. The haves, the 1% that own everything in this country, and
The
the
ones
rest of
that
us.
produce things.
Oh, no, you don't
and that
produce
those
anything.
citizens on the
You
welfare line
don't
don't do
produce
a goddamn
anything.
thing.
You-
The hell with them.
You produce
They
nothing.
raise
In fact, your
children.
class lives off our
You
labor.
produce
Exactly.
nothing, Mr.
You live
Cohen.
off our labor. If a man works 4 hours a day to support his family and he works another 4 hours, that profit goes to you, and you did nothing to earn it.
Nothing.
You're learning off the back of these people who you debase.
Who on welfare are raising our children. What is more important
You must
than
respect-
raising our children? Not you, Mr.
you
Cohen,
must
not you.
respect work. You must respect the workers who support your needs.
We don't have to respect them. We don't have to think about the people I represent.
I fool.
They own the country, and they're going to do everything
They're
they
gonna keep
can.
hanging
They're
on
going
to
to
it.
maintain control of it. So get used to it.
You are a fool.
No, I am not. Call me a fool.
Mr. Cohen,
That's how it works. I
Mr.
mean, look at polling.
It's not working.
Comrade Cohen,
The people.
Yeah, well-
if that were true, and you were so sure of yourself, why would you have to persecute and bring those people before your committee for simply believing in a different idea if you were not afraid of that idea? And that idea would topple your
Mr. Marks,
belief
they
in your
didn't even have to
superiority.
believe in it. They
Why
just
would
had
you?
to discuss it.
If
your idea.
if your idea could topple my theory, then why would you have to persecute people who believe in my theory? Your
Why don't
idea
you
would
just-
stand on its own.
Theories are from a foreign enemy country.
Wait a minute.
Carly.
Wait a minute.
Well,
There's
no
something
doubt.
very interesting.
Wow.
And Babette, please say that a little louder. People didn't have to believe in communism. All they had to do
You
was
do
go
it
to a meeting.
All I had to do was discuss it. And if communism is such a bad idea, you should have had a better idea. And if you put your better idea out and it wasn't adopted, well, too bad.
Be-
That's how this works.
People don't do ideas. And you know, the American people, they don't worry about ideas, they don't worry about ideology, they don't worry about theory. They just go to work, come home, go to bed,
And
watch
take care of
TV.
you, right.
Yeah. Hey, I don't need anyone taking care of me. I'm very wealthy, I'm very powerful, I don't need
I want to tell you
That's
one
how
thing
you
that you
go.
weren't so powerful with, and that is when you took on the United States Army. And you took on the United States Army because your lover, David Shine,
He
had
was
been
my friend, he
drafted.
was not a...
Well, okay, whatever he
Still
was to
calling me
you.
a homo.
Whatever he was to you, he had been drafted, and you actually contacted the Secretary of the Army, and you tried to get your friend commissioned as an officer because you wanted him to work with you. And because that was not done, you decided to take on the United States Army.
But I don't think it had a lot to do with David Shine. I think it had to do with you. And your absolute power was challenged by the Army. They wouldn't do what you said. You said, do it. They said, sorry. And so you decided you'd get them. But what happened was they got you. Thank goodness.
You got gotten, my friend. And your army is not so strong as you think, but they were strong enough to defeat you.
Yeah, but maybe.
They tried to defeat my country. They tried to invade my country. You remember that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, pity.
Let's talk about that. Let's
Oh.
talk about
in your
the
army.
fact that the United States government, I mean,
So
President
silly.
Eisenhower, who's someone who's been a guest on this show, and we think very highly of, but President
Well,
Eisenhower,
some of us.
Some
but
of you.
President Eisenhower, in fact, at that time, gave $13 million to the CIA and approved of them partnering with the mafia, who in fact you did represent the mafia later on in your career.
Yeah.
Many members of the mafia, which your girlfriend J. Edgar Hoover swore didn't exist. But nevertheless, and you guys orchestrated the partnership between the mafia and the CIA to try to overthrow President Castro. You want to talk about what happened?
Hey,
Did-
the one thing about the mafia, the quote-unquote mafia, as you call it, I mean, they understand free enterprise, and
Yeah,
they don't
that's
try to
true.
overthrow the government. They know
Because
how
they have
it
the
works.
government in their hip pocket.
Why would they need to overthrow the government?
I didn't say they were going. I was saying they're not out to overthrow the government
They don't
like
need
the
to.
commies here.
What is
They
the
own the government.
What is there to overthrow?
Exactly.
They own the government. Why would
And
they?
they
Why ever would
certainly
they overthrow the
understand free enterprise. That's a great
That's
way
it.
to
That's how
characterize
free
them.
enterprise works.
In fact, if it weren't for capitalism, and if you look at the history of the mafiosos who come up from lower class, working class Italian backgrounds, you would not have organized crime if you didn't have the inequalities of capitalism.
Precisely.
Of course.
Precisely.
Your
'Cause
country
people-
tried to overthrow a little island 90 miles away so many times. Tried to kill a man like me many times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I lost
Wait a minute. I mean, we know about
You
the
were
Baker
allied
case.
with the Soviet Union. It was a base. We could.
I lost count. Don't know how many times
We
you tried to
drove
kill
him
me.
to the Soviet Union. We
No, we did
drove
not.
him into
He was a
their
commie from the
arms.
first.
We drove him into their arms.
President Castro.
I'm insulted, Mr. Cohen. Comrade Cohen.
We did
Because
good.
most
Yeah, I'm a
people,
comrade.
most people refer to him as a Marxist. So I would, that gives me a little bit of credibility.
Thank you, comrade.
But I'd like to say some of the foiled plots. I think you even tried to have him blown up through a cigar because he smoked cigars.
No, never.
I mean, I just think when
Are you a fan of the theater?
What?
You mention television all the time. Television.
That
television.
sounds like
It's always
that
television.
sounds like a plot from there's a
Yes.
play. One of the, if I could only remember which one it was, the
A Fool's-
Murder by Cigar, right? I don't remember the title.
Well, I have often thought of people in government is that they just watch too much movie.
There's too much fear.
Too many
going.
movies,
There's too much
too
fear
much
on your
TV.
side of the border. A fear about overthrowing this, a fear about catching that, a fear about someone moving in.
Me,
There's so much
I
fear.
have a fear of somebody
So much
shooting me
fear.
because everybody's got a gun.
Yeah.
You're right to
That's a
keep them bare
realistic
arms,
gun.
honey.
Comrade Cohn,
What?
did you and the people who followed your crooked lead not accuse President Eisenhower of being a sympathizer to the Soviet Union and to communism?
A war
What do
hero.
you mean?
A
What do you
war,
mean?
yeah,
Did you
General
not- did you
Dwight
not-
David Eisenhower, war hero, later president of the United States. Did
did
you
you-
not accuse him of having communist sympathies?
I never said anything like that.
The people on your side, the John Birch Society did.
Did you ever disavow it?
You don't recall.
Of course
no,
not.
that's right. I don't recall. I don't
You're
recall.
using the same thing that you persecuted people for before your committee for doing. I don't recall Fifth Amendment, and you're doing the same thing.
Say I
It's
just.
all right, he's special.
I know. I can speak for myself.
I will
Fido,
represent you.
Fido or whatever.
I will be your.
I don't need any help.
You
Okay?
need help,
You
my
do
friend.
need help. 'cause
I think you need
Lieutenant
both of them to
President
help you.
Castro is a far better lawyer than you ever were.
You need help.
Stayed in power a lot longer than you did and still is.
Still in power. But you see, power as true power represents respect. You were very disrespectful to our guests. You were disrespectful to yourself. You disrespect your country. If you want true power, you must be respectful. People must respect you.
And I get respect by asserting my power.
Now you get respect from other people
You earn
by
res-
having
you earn
self-respect.
respect, my friend. You
I-
earn respect.
By
Respect
having
myself.
self-respect,
How-
and you hate yourself
What do you mean, hate myself? What do you mean?
Look
for
at
being
you.
gay, for
Look at
being
you.
a homosexual, as they said in those days, and for maybe having communist sympathies, who knows?
And for being Jewish.
And for being Jewish.
I didn't ask to be a Jew, okay? I didn't ask for
You
it.
didn't ask to be a homosexual
Never
either.
apologize for who you are. You can be a Jewish homosexual if you want to be.
Yeah, we don't care.
We have absolutely no problem with that.
But you do hate yourself for all three.
And the reason why people didn't respect you is because you don't respect yourself.
You
Fine,
know,
whatever.
You were, well, I guess
There's hope.
I want you to know that of all the people on this panel, at least I don't think you're a pinko.
I don't care what you think, Paulie. I don't care. I don't give a
See?
shit.
But what do you count? Because you are a pinko, right? I mean, in his eyes. So your opinion doesn't count. Or your wonderful voice, or your terrific speeches, or your great performances, or
Who
your...
nobody gives a shit about.
Some of us just need a little affirmation and support. And I want you to know, Mr. Cohn, that I am here for you.
Oh, yeah, Ron.
And I'm sorry, my sir. There's so much pain in your world, your little world. There's so much pain. And if you think about your childhood when you were once a little boy, I'm sure your
He was
world
never a
was
little
not so
boy.
painful.
But you know, I want to say something, Mr. Cohn. As I sit here and think about how you died, running through the hospital hall screaming that they're out to get me, they're out to get me, being visited by the demons that you created, because the Rosenberg trial. The Rosenberg trial, I mean, there was no question that you knew that the testimony that came before you and the evidence that was presented, at least against
well,
Ethel,
David Greenglass, who is Ethel's brother,
you
testified that Ethel was typing up the notes, and that's why she went to the death chamber. He later said, just recently, because he just recently died, it might have been my wife too, but we had children and I was going to protect her, and you set that up.
and you knew that the information that was presented against the Rosenbergs was false.
At least against Ethel.
But
Ethel didn't do a thing.
and
And you knew that, and so did everybody else.
and she had children. They had children.
They had those two boys who got raised as, their last name was Meerpool, I think. A family took them.
I mean, I guess that.
I guess he's starting to show HIV
maybe,
symptoms here or something.
What symptoms?
But maybe what I want to say to you is the way that you died, being challenged by all of the wrongs that you've done, running through a hospital saying they're out to get me, they're out to get me, and you thought that Ethel Rosenberg was in your hospital room. I mean,
I hope she was.
I have a sense of profound, I don't know, I guess I want to say sympathy for you to have died alone, unloved, and for history to finally be brought about that where we can talk about people like you and of your ilk to actually punish
Ilk.
To punish people who think differently. And I don't even know, because I believe, as Comrade Marx said, maybe you were in fact a communist yourself, and that's why you hated yourself so much, and that's why you went after communists the way that you, or suspected communists, the way that you did. I feel sorry for how you died. And I feel sorry for what history has done to you, because you know what, we all know what you were and what you represented. And guess what? You're not so far from some people who think they run this country today. You're not so far from that.
And they still run the country.
Yes.
And they're always going to run the country. What else is there? There's nothing else.
Well,
But power?
There's no other way.
It's only
There's my way and my way will come.
1 minute, one friend.
It's happening right here in the United States.
It's only a dream.
People are seeing exactly what
What do you think?
unchecked power does. We see that.
And we see things like the fast food workers taking to the street because they're tired of being oppressed by the government that you extol. And we see all kinds of folks who understand that the middle class is disappearing and they are becoming poor. And why should they put up with that?
They're never going to give up their power.
The
No, they're never going to give
Oh,
up their
not
power.
willingly.
In fact, Comrade Cohen, you and Mr. McCarthy, Senator McCarthy, knew this, and the revolution will come. You just stemmed it for a short period of time with your abhorrent behavior.
Well,
and
for your own
persecution
purposes.
And your own purposes. The revolution
That's
will
how
come.
they always. That's
Well-
how they always played the game.
You died alone. You were disgraced in death, and your memory and Senator McCarthy's memory is something that we hope will forever be an example to what is wrong, what can be wrong with the abuses
And
of
the
power.
people that you abuse, some of whom are at this table, like Mr. Robeson, didn't do anything nearly as bad.
You don't
That's how it
sound
works
very
here.
sympathetic.
That's how.
No,
I'm not pretending to be sympathetic.
No,
You
I'm
must
sym-
be speaking to
You're
Ms.
sp-
Crawford.
You're speaking to me because I'm sympathetic for the way that he died. That's what I'm sympathetic. I'm
But it's
sympathetic
not
that he
me.
died. He died that kind of death and was unable to actually be who he wanted to be.
They're always going to have someone to put down guys like Paulie here. I mean, look at Rush Limbaugh. I mean, always going to dig up somebody who's going to have the lower guys hate someone else.
Yes, yes.
There's always going to be. It's never going to change.
So cultivate that hate, huh? What a good idea.
I am happy that we have gotten to the point where you've broken down. I'm happy about that. And so I'd like to say to our audience, on behalf of Babette and myself and the entire Conversations Across Time crew, we want to thank our guests who were here tonight. And particularly, I want to thank you, Comrade Marx. I thank you, Mr. Cohn. I thank you, President Castro, and I thank you, Mr. Robeson. This has been Conversations Across Time. Please tune in next week when we will again have more controversial guests and controversial conversations. This has been Conversations Across Time.
Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time.